So Mike Bloomberg dropped out of the Democratic primary race, and a lot of people were wondering what was he even doing there in the first place? What was his goal? It never seemed to be really that clear. He had such a weird, erratic campaign with such odd plotting. And I think I've got a theory because Bloomberg supposedly is a big part of why Virginia, where I live, became a blue state. So back during the Obama voting in 2008 was the first time I think in like ever that Virginia had been a blue state. I think it was considered I don't know if it was considered a swing state until then. I just know that I had never seen it blue before, and it became blue. And this was credited almost entirely to the black vote. There are a lot of black people in Virginia. I know. I've lived here my whole life, all over the state. And it's always been a pretty, even mix of white and black people, at least by my observation. So, if the truth is that black people went out to vote for Obama because he was black, then that's why Virginia voted Democrat. But apparently, Bloomberg had some hand in this, in that he placed certain key figures. He funded the campaigns of certain people who, would facilitate this. I don't know the details. That's just what I've heard. And Bloomberg was also mayor of New York for a time. New York City. Obviously, he's had to campaign to be voted for by black people before. So, in this race, he was also initially financially backing two black candidates, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. Now, was his purpose to try and duplicate his success with Obama? I don't think so. I think that the purpose of these candidates were to raise issues that face the black community towards Biden during his debates, to argue with him, to slam him on issues of the black community, even though picking Kamala Harris, who everybody was going to rag on for, the controversies in her police background, I guess. She, seemingly got in trouble in such a way that, black voters would not vote for her, but she was able to raise these issues to Joe Biden, who has a foot in the door with black voters because of the fact that he was Obama's vice president. And he constantly insists that he has the black vote, and it seems to show in the polls. So, when I look at Bloomberg, I look at a guy who never feasibly had a chance because he has no charisma, he didn't seem to be taking it seriously, and he's such an obvious target. The guy's not retarded, obviously. He knew that he was going to get called out on all these things. All politicians know what they're going to get called out on. They know what's coming. They're prepared for that. But Bloomberg basically just joined the race, put a huge target on his back, and poured a bunch of money into getting people to actually pay attention to the primaries. First of all, he makes kind of a bad guy. He can manipulate how much of an impression he gives as a candidate, even though he was not even included practically in the first couple of states that voted. He had such a massive presence because he literally was paying the media corporations to talk about him, to bring up questions about him during debates that he wasn't even at. He he was suddenly everywhere. And that's of his own design. And, of course, the tenor of all populist conversation around him is, oh, well, fuck that guy. He's a billionaire just as bad as Trump. There are some people who seem to think that Bloomberg's strategy was to just be Trump also. He has even more money than Trump, so he can do it even better. I don't think that was ever his plan because Democrats hate Trump. I think he was a Trump stand-in. I think he was there so that everybody else could fling shit at him, so that they could attack him, they could use him as their punching bag, so to speak. And it would make the other candidates at the top look good. And I think most importantly, I think that Bloomberg is somebody who's already been working with the Democratic Party for a long time, not only as a politician, but as a funder, obviously. Somebody pours tons of money into trying to get Democrats elected. So I don't think he would have much reason to want Bernie to be president, since Bernie is not an establishment Democrat. He is, he's not a Democratic senator, I don't believe. He is just running as a Democratic candidate for president. So, obviously, if Biden is the best bet for Democratic establishment, then Bloomberg's whole purpose here was most likely to prop up Biden. And it clearly worked, if that's what's really going on. Because Biden is, pulling ahead. And when I was at the poll, because I went to go vote in the Democratic primary, I voted for Bernie. I was there, and the only voters I saw at the two schools I went to, because I went to the wrong school first, then went to another one, I only saw middle-aged black voters. That was it. Those are the only people I saw voting at the Democratic primaries, maybe like one white lady, and then me. And the people running the booths were all middle-aged black people as well. And I just couldn't help but think, everyone here is voting for Biden. And that's fine. I have no horse in this race. I don't really give a shit. I'm just saying, this is my theory as to what Bloomberg was trying to do. He basically entered the race so that he could signal boost people actually looking at the Democratic primaries and going out to vote in them, because the voter turnouts were massive. Biden's turnouts were bigger than Hillary and Bernie's combined from the previous election cycle. So that's a crazy Democratic primary turnout, especially considering that the debates had record low viewership. So whatever Bloomberg did to get people to care about the primary, the people who came out, they were not people who were following the meta narrative on Twitter and standing Bernie Sanders. They're people who, there were TV reports literally saying things like an unpassionate vote counts just as much as a passionate vote. So even if you're not that passionate, ignore all those extremists and go out and vote, for the person you feel comfortable with, having done no research on the subject, which would of course be Joe Biden. And all of Bloomberg's ads, I saw some of his ads on TV, and they are all of just him with Obama, just like clip shows of every interaction he ever had with Obama. He had more footage of himself with Obama than Biden. But if Bloomberg is just trying to draw attention to Obama, and Biden's trying to invoke Obama, and then Biden gets a big push and Bloomberg's not necessary anymore, then that's the end of Bloomberg's campaign. And that's my theory as to what's happened here. I think it was all a collated effort on the part of the media to, I think possibly every candidate who wasn't Bernie Sanders existed solely for the eventual purpose of propping up Joe Biden. And the idea that anything else was the case, that was the trick. That was the trap that everybody fell into, and why Biden is the front runner.